All right, so today we're diving deep into Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Ah, yeah, classic.
It really is. I mean, this book has been around forever. It's sold millions and millions of copies.
For a good reason.
Yeah. What is it about this book that you think makes it so enduring and universally appealing?
Well, I think it's because at the end of the day, we all want to have better relationships and be more persuasive.
Right. And it gives you this kind of framework, right? Almost like, here are the tools.
Yeah.
And go use them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just about understanding the concepts, but actually seeing, okay, how can I use these in my daily life?
Absolutely. How do we make these actionable?
Actionable, yes.
Oh.
Okay, so Carnegie kicks things off with this section called Fundamental Techniques in Handling People.
Okay.
And the first principle is, don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Interesting.
Which I have to say, I was a little surprised by.
Yeah, I can see why.
Because you think, oh, feedback is important, right?
Right,
We're supposed to, like, give people feedback. But he actually has a really kind of a dramatic way to start this off.
Okay.
He talks about this gangster named Two Gun Crowley.
Oh, wow.
And this guy was, like, a hardcore criminal.
Yeah.
But he refused to accept any blame for his actions.
Really?
Even as he was facing execution.
Wow, that's interesting.
And I think it really speaks to this idea that
our need to justify ourselves.
Yes.
It's so deeply ingrained. Like, we all want to just, we make excuses, we shift blame.
Right.
Anything to avoid feeling like we're in the wrong.
It's so true. And he's saying that this is actually what damages our relationships.
Yes.
More than anything else.
Yeah.
So instead of criticizing, condemning, or complaining,
right,
what does he say we should do?
Well, what's the opposite of all that?
Well, he actually says give honest and sincere appreciation.
Ah, okay.
So think about a time when someone has genuinely complimented you.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
I mean, it always feels good, right? Appreciate.
You feel seen.
Seen, yeah.
Valued.
Like you want to do better, maybe even.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carnegie actually tells this crazy story about a woman who was so moved by a man who just appreciated her belongings.
Oh, wow.
That she gave him her Packard.
What?
Yeah.
That's a pretty expensive compliment.
It is a very expensive compliment.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the power of appreciation.
Yeah. We all crave it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it can completely change our perspective.
So how can we apply this? It sounds kind of abstract, but how can we actually take this idea and put it into practice?
Well, I think it starts with being more mindful of the language we use.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on what people are doing wrong.
Right.
Maybe we can look for opportunities to acknowledge what they're doing right.
Okay, so instead of pointing out the negative, you're saying look for the positive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actively look for it.
Yes, it's not about being fake or anything.
Right.
It's just about that conscious effort to appreciate the good. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And this next principle is a little bit tricky.
Okay.
It's called arouse in the other person an eager want.
Ooh. Okay.
Which sounds a little bit manipulative, perhaps.
Yeah, I can see that. But there's a nuance there.
Yes, absolutely. So essentially what he's saying is,
okay,
the best way to get someone to do something is to make them want to do it.
Okay.
So instead of forcing it on them,
right,
you're trying to figure out, okay, what is it that they want?
Yeah.
And how can I align my request with that?
So it's less about manipulation and more about understanding motivation?
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And he uses this great analogy of a child who doesn't want to go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right? So the parents are trying everything to get this kid to go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
But he's just like, nope, not doing it.
Right.
And then they shift their approach
Right.
and they start talking about all the fun things that kindergarten has to offer, the toys, the friends,
right,
all of that. And suddenly the child is like, oh, actually, kindergarten sounds kind of cool.
I see. So you're shifting the perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on what you want, you're trying to tap into what the other person wants.
Yes.
Okay.
And he gives this fantastic example of a student who used this principle to make a major sale.
Really?
Yeah. And instead of bombarding the client with all these features and benefits, he took the time to understand what the client's needs were.
I see.
And then he positioned his product as the solution to those needs.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, so it's all about framing, right?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, here's all the great things about my product, you're saying,
here's how it can solve your problems.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, so it's a subtle shift.
Yeah.
But it can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
So we've covered 3 pretty powerful principles already.
Okay.
Don't criticize, give honest appreciation, and arouse an eager want.
Yeah. Don't criticize, appreciate, and make them want to do it.
Yes.
Got it.
These may seem simple on the surface,
Yeah.
but they can have a huge impact on how we interact with other people.
Absolutely. And I think the key is actually putting them into practice.
Yes.
Like, try it out.
Try it out.
See what happens. You might be surprised.
Okay, so stay tuned, because there's a lot more to come in our deep dive into how to win friends and influence people.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we're back, and now we're going to jump into 6 ways to make people like you,
Okay.
which sounds like, I don't know, a recipe for instant popularity or something?
Well, it's not quite as simple as that.
Right.
But Carnegie does offer some really interesting strategies for building rapport.
Okay.
And the first one is become genuinely interested in other people.
Okay, so that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
We all like to be around people who are interested in us.
exactly.
But how do you do that? Especially, like, I can't be an expert in everything.
You're right.
So if someone starts talking about, I don't know, astrophysics,
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little lost.
Well, you don't have to be an expert. It's more about cultivating that curiosity.
Okay.
Like, Carnegie tells this funny story about himself getting completely engrossed in a conversation with a botanist
Okay.
at a dinner party.
Okay.
Now, Carnegie knew nothing about plants,
Right.
but he was fascinated by the botanist's passion.
And so he just listened
He listened.
and asked questions.
Exactly.
And I bet that botanist walked away thinking Carnegie was, like, the most interesting guy.
Probably.
Yeah. Even though he didn't know anything about plants.
Exactly. It's because he was genuinely interested.
Right.
And people love to talk about themselves.
It's true. We do.
Yeah.
And their interests, their experiences.
Yeah. And when you show that genuine interest,
Yeah.
you're making them feel valued, understood.
You know, I've definitely noticed that.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm actually present in a conversation
Right.
and not just waiting for my turn to talk,
Yes.
but really listening to what the other person is saying,
Mm-hmm.
it makes such a difference.
It deepens the connection.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's about that mental shift, right?
Yeah.
From like, what can I say next?
Right.
To what can I learn from this person?
Yes.
And Carnegie actually gives some tips for putting this into practice.
Okay.
Ask open-ended questions.
Okay.
Encourage people to elaborate.
Okay.
Resist the urge to interrupt.
Right. Right.
Or steer the conversation back to yourself.
So it's not about trying to impress people with our own knowledge.
Right.
It's about drawing their knowledge out.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, so the next principle is all about nonverbal communication. Smile.
Okay, how can something as simple as smiling
Yeah.
make such a difference?
Well, think about it. When someone smiles at you,
Yeah.
how does it make you feel?
You feel good.
Yeah, it's an instant mood booster.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like welcoming.
Welcoming, acknowledging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to smile back at someone when they smile at you.
It's contagious.
It really is.
Yeah.
And Carnegie even talks about how telephone companies would train their operators to smile while they were talking to customers.
Right.
Because they realized
Oh, wow.
that came through in their voice.
That's fascinating.
Warmth and positivity.
So even though they can't see you,
Yes.
they can still feel it.
You can feel it.
It's amazing.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make a conscious effort to smile more.
Good. Me too.
It's such an easy thing to do.
It is.
Just brighten someone's day.
Okay. The next principle is one that I personally struggle with.
Okay.
Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
Oh, that is a tough one.
It is.
I am terrible with names.
Yeah.
But I do know
Yeah.
that when someone remembers my name,
Yes.
it does make me feel
Seen.
seen.
Yes.
Important. Like they.
Yeah. So it is important.
It is. It really is.
But how do you do it? I mean,
Yeah.
some people are just like naturally good at it, right? Like Carnegie talks about this guy, Jim Farley, who could remember the names of 50,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Most of us don't need to remember 50,000 names.
Right.
But we can all make an effort.
Yeah.
You know, there are techniques,
Yeah.
repetition, association, even just writing it down.
Putting it down, yeah.
Anything that helps solidify that name in your memory.
Okay, so little tricks like that can actually make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, so building on that idea of being genuinely interested,
Okay.
the next principle is be a good listener.
Yeah.
Encourage others to talk about themselves.
And this goes beyond just asking questions, right? It's
Okay.
about truly listening to the answers
Right.
and making the other person feel heard.
Heard, yeah.
Carnegie tells this story about a salesman who landed a huge order simply by letting the president of a company do all the talking.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he just listened.
And the president felt heard.
He felt understood, he felt appreciated.
And wanted to work with this guy.
Exactly.
Because he had listened.
Because he had listened.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Okay, I think sometimes we get so caught up in trying to, prove ourselves that we forget to just listen.
We do.
Yeah, and we can learn so much
by
just listening.
It's true.
Okay, so the next principle is all about finding common ground.
Okay.
Talk in terms of the other person's interests.
So recognize that everyone has their own unique set of passions.
Right.
Hobbies,
yeah.
experiences. But when you take the time to learn about those interests, you create that foundation for connection, rapport.
He tells this story about a salesman who finally made a sale after 4 years of trying.
Wow.
By discovering and talking about the customer's hobby.
That's persistence.
It is. It is.
And it just shows, that genuine connection, right? He wasn't trying to manipulate the customer. He was just trying to find that point of connection. Shared interest.
And this can apply to so many different things, right?
Absolutely.
It could be networking. It could be job interviews.
Yeah.
It could be just making small talk at a party. Taking the time to learn about the other person's interests.
Yeah, instead of those superficial interactions.
Right.
You're finding that genuine connection.
Right. It doesn't have to be something major.
Yeah.
It could be that you both like to cook or you're both fans of a certain sports team.
Exactly.
Whatever it is.
Find that common ground.
Find that common ground, yeah.
Okay, so we've covered 5 principles so far.
Okay, what's the last one?
The final principle in this section is make the other person feel important and do it sincerely.
Okay, that sounds like a good one.
Yeah, and Carnegie argues that this is one of the deepest urges in human nature.
Right. We all want to feel important.
We do. We want to feel valued, appreciated, yes.
But how do we actually make others feel that way?
Right. It's more than just giving compliments. Yes, it's about treating people with respect.
Okay.
Listening to their ideas, acknowledging their contributions.
Okay.
It's about making them feel like their presence makes a difference.
So it's actions.
Action.
Not just words.
Exactly.
Carnegie tells this story about a teacher who motivated a shy student.
Okay.
By inviting him to join the advanced class.
Oh, nice.
And it wasn't about giving the student, special treatment.
Yeah.
It was about recognizing his potential.
Yeah.
And making him feel like he belonged.
I see.
Yeah, and he says, this has to be sincere.
Yeah.
People can tell when you're being fake.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it has to come from a place of genuine appreciation and respect. Okay, so these 6 principles are really about building authentic connections.
Yeah, it's not about putting on a persona or manipulating people. It's about cultivating those qualities that draw people in and make them want to connect with you.
These are great.
And the best part is, when you start putting these principles into practice, you'll find that not only do others respond more positively to you, but you'll also start to feel better about yourself.
That's awesome.
It's win-win.
Okay, so we've got one more section to go.
Okay.
How to win people to your way of thinking.
Yeah, the art of persuasion.
I'm excited about this one.
Me too. It's a good one.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into how to win friends and influence people.
Time for the grand finale.
It is, and we've already learned so much about how to handle people and make them like us, but now it's time to get into the art of persuasion.
Okay.
With this section called How to Win People to Your Way of Thinking.
All right.
And I have to say, when I first saw this title, I was a little apprehensive.
I can understand that.
Because, the word persuasion, it can sometimes feel manipulative.
It can.
But Carnegie's approach is really not about that.
No, it's not about being pushy or sneaky.
Right. It's more about understanding how to communicate effectively.
Yes.
And influence others in a positive way.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that persuasion is happening all the time.
It really is.
Whether we're conscious of it or not.
Yeah, we're always trying to persuade each other in some way, whether it's getting your friend to see a movie or convincing your boss to give you a raise.
Exactly.
It's part of everyday life.
It is.
So Carnegie's just giving us a framework for doing it well.
Right, and doing it ethically?
Ethically.
Yes.
Respectful.
In a way that builds relationships.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump into his principles.
Oh, yeah.
The first one is, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And probably a challenging one for a lot of people.
Very challenging.
Yeah.
Especially for someone like me who likes to play devil's advocate sometimes.
I hear you.
But he makes a really compelling case for why arguments are just not productive. Yeah, they rarely are.
Right.
You might win the argument,
Yeah.
but you lose something much more valuable.
A relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, arguments escalate conflict.
Right.
Create a divide.
Yeah, and it makes it really hard to come back from that sometimes.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So he tells this great story about a salesman
Okay.
who completely transformed his approach
All right.
by agreeing with difficult customers.
Interesting.
So instead of getting defensive,
Yeah.
he would just say, "You're right."
Oh, that!
And then he would find a way to kind of redirect the conversation.
That's a really good strategy.
Right. It completely disarms the other person.
It does, yeah.
You're not fighting them.
You're meeting them where they are
Yes.
and then finding a way to move forward together.
Okay, I like that.
So the next principle is show respect for the other person's opinions.
Okay.
Never say you're wrong.
Those are fighting words.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a simple phrase,
Yeah.
but it can be so damaging.
It immediately puts the other person on the defensive.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like you're invalidating their entire perspective.
It shuts down the conversation.
Yes.
It makes it really hard to find common ground.
Yeah, so Carnegie encourages us to really try to understand where the other person is coming from.
Even if we completely disagree,
Yeah.
there's always something to be learned.
By trying to see things from their perspective.
Right, by trying to see the world through their eyes.
And he shares this really interesting story about a tax inspector who was known for being incredibly difficult.
Oh, no.
Just like stubborn, inflexible.
Yeah, those are not the qualities you want in tax inspector.
No.
But then one taxpayer, instead of arguing with him, he expressed genuine appreciation for the challenging nature of his job.
Wow.
And the inspector was so taken aback by this
Really?
that he completely changed his demeanor.
Wow. So he went from being stubborn and inflexible to
being more reasonable.
More reasonable.
And open to discussion.
Yeah. Just because someone acknowledged the difficulty of his job.
Yes. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the best way to win someone over is to simply treat them with respect and understanding.
Okay, this next principle is a tough one.
Okay.
If you are wrong, admit quickly and emphatically.
Ooh. Yeah, that one's hard.
It's hard, right?
Nobody likes to admit they're wrong.
No, it's not fun.
But Carnegie argues that it's the most honest and effective way to move forward.
It takes a lot of courage and humility.
It does, yeah.
But it shows that you have integrity.
Yeah, it shows you're willing to take responsibility, and it also takes the sting out of it for the other person.
And he shares a couple of really powerful stories.
Okay.
One is about a man who had to make amends with his estranged son.
Oh, wow.
And the other is about John D. Rockefeller Jr.,
Okay.
who navigated this really tense labor strike by expressing empathy and taking responsibility for past mistakes.
I see. So in both cases, the act of admitting fault opened the door for reconciliation.
It's so powerful.
It is,
Okay, principle number 4 is begin in a friendly way.
Okay, that seems simple enough.
Right. But how often do we jump into conversations with accusations?
Right. Or complaints.
Or demands.
Yeah, we come in hot.
Yeah.
And that just sets the wrong tone.
Carnegie says that starting with a friendly tone, even in difficult situations, can make all the difference.
It's about setting the stage for collaboration.
Yes.
Instead of confrontation.
He tells this funny anecdote about diffusing a tense situation with a park ranger.
Oh, interesting.
By being friendly and understanding.
Good for him.
Right. And it just reminds us that we're all human.
We are.
We all have our good days and our bad days.
Yeah.
And a little bit of kindness can go a long way.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this next principle is get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately.
Okay, I like that.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
So essentially what he's saying is find common ground early on in the conversation.
Okay, establish a pattern of agreement.
Yes.
Instead of starting with disagreement.
Yeah.
Got it.
And he gives an example of a man who successfully negotiated a rent reduction.
Okay.
By highlighting points of agreement with his landlord.
Smart.
Yeah, so instead of coming in and saying, your rent is too high, he found things that they could agree on.
Yeah.
And then from there,
he built that rapport.
Yes, he was able to make his case.
Yeah, so that the landlord was more receptive.
More receptive, yeah.
I like that.
Okay, so building on the idea of being a good listener.
Okay.
Let the other person do a great deal of the talking.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Because people love to talk about themselves.
They do.
Way more than they love to listen to us talk.
So true.
So give them that space.
Carnegie tells this story about interviewing a really successful businessman.
Okay.
And he realized that he gained far more insights
Yeah.
by encouraging the businessman to talk than by trying to dominate the conversation himself.
It's about being curious.
Curious, yes.
And asking questions.
Yeah, and just letting the other person share
their wisdom.
their wisdom, yes.
Okay, principle number 7.
Okay.
Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers.
Oh, I love this one.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah, because when people feel like they've come up with the idea,
Yes.
they're so much more invested in it.
They're more likely to take action.
Absolute.
Carnegie tells this story about a sales manager
Okay.
who turned things around
Yeah.
by asking the client for their ideas
Interesting.
instead of just presenting his own.
So it's like, instead of saying, here's what I think we should do,
Yeah,
it's what are your thoughts on this?
exactly. And that makes the client feel like a partner.
Right. Not just a recipient.
Yes.
Okay, and finally, we come to perhaps the most important principle of all.
Okay, hit me with it.
Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view.
Empathy.
Empathy, yes.
The foundation of it all.
And he illustrates this with a story
Okay.
about a husband who learned to appreciate his wife's dedication to gardening.
Oh, that's sweet.
Right. And just by taking the time to understand her perspective,
Yeah.
he was able to connect with her on a deeper level.
It's those little things
Yes.
that make all the difference.
It really is. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive
Man.
into how to win friends and influence people.
A lot of wisdom packed into these pages.
It really is. And it all boils down to approaching our interactions with others with this spirit of respect, empathy,
Empathy.
and understanding.
Absolutely. And it's not about manipulation or control.
No, it's about creating win-win situations.
Yes, where everyone feels heard and valued.
And as we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with this final thought-provoking question from Carnegie.
Okay.
He says, men are ruled by toys.
Interesting.
Do you agree?
That's a good one.
How do seemingly small things like titles
Right. Praise, yeah.
or even symbolic gestures
Yeah.
impact our motivations and our behavior?
Something to think about.
It really is. And as you go about your day, as you interact with your colleagues,
Yeah.
your loved ones, even strangers,
Yeah.
pay attention to those little things.
And see how they affect you.
See how they affect you. See how they affect other people.
It's fascinating.
It is. And I encourage you to put these principles into practice.
Yeah, experiment.
Experiment. See how they work in your own life.
And see what happens.
See what happens. Observe the results.
You might be surprised.
You might be surprised. And remember, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, the journey continues.
The journey of understanding human nature
Yes.
and mastering the art of connection.
It's a lifelong pursuit.
It is. But with the wisdom of Dale Carnegie as our guide,
Absolutely.
I think we can all strive to be better friends, more influential leaders,
Yeah.
and ultimately more fulfilled human beings.
I love that.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Hope you learned something.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.